Hey everyone, today we're jumping into a really powerful idea, one that suggests there's this kind of hidden physics to human connection. It's a single theory that might just link our deepest feelings to the way our entire societies work. It sounds like the start of a riddle, right? I mean, what could possibly connect the intense pull of love, the tension you feel in a power dynamic, and the quiet calm of meditation? Well, the answer is pretty surprising. They might all just be different flavors of the exact same fundamental process. First, think about attraction. You know that feeling, that undeniable pull, a sense of flow toward another person. It's almost like an emotional current, right? A feeling that they have something you really value. Okay, now let's think about tension. Picture the dynamic between a boss and an employee, or even a government and its people. There's this pressure, this gap in status or power, and it completely shapes how everything flows between them, from information to cooperation. And finally, there's balance. That feeling of inner harmony we're all kind of looking for, maybe through something like meditation, where all the internal pushes and pulls just find a point of quiet equilibrium. So attraction, tension, and balance. How on earth are these connected? Let's dig in. So here's the core idea, and it's a pretty cool analogy. What if our emotional and social lives actually behave like physical systems? What if our feelings, our ideas, and even power itself could be understood as a kind of current, flowing just like water or electricity? To really get this, we first need to talk about a concept called allostasis. Think of it this way. Your body isn't like a thermostat that's just locked in at one single temperature. Nope. It's much more like a sailor on a boat, constantly adjusting the sails to stay upright as the winds change. It's not about staying perfectly still. It's about finding balance through constant change to deal with whatever life throws at you. And this leads us to what looks like a universal pattern. It seems that all systems, from our own bodies to entire societies, are always trying to find balance. And that balance isn't static. It happens through a dynamic flow. Now, this flow is always kicked off by some kind of difference or potential, and it's always slowed down by some kind of resistance. Now, here's where it gets really incredible. This whole idea, this universal pattern of flow, difference, and resistance, can actually be captured in one surprisingly simple and elegant formula. So before we even look at the math, just think of it like a process, a recipe. It all starts with a difference, a tension between 2 points. Then you add some intention or focus, which helps you push past the resistance or friction in the system. And what's the result? You create a flow. And there it is, the continuity equation. I know, it might look a little intimidating at first glance, but trust me, this single formula is the key to answering our big question about what connects love, power, and meditation. All right, let's break this thing down. That first symbol, the one that looks kind of like a pitchfork, that's psi, and it just means flow. Could be a flow of emotion, information, anything. Next up, delta sigma. That stands for the difference in potential, the tension we've been talking about. I sub T is the intention, the focus or connection that's driving things forward. And finally, R is just the resistance that's slowing it all down. So when you put it all together, the big idea is this. Flow equals the difference multiplied by your intention, all divided by the resistance. Okay, so we've got the formula. Now for the fun part. Let's see how this one little equation can be applied to pretty much every level of human connection, from our most private emotions to massive social structures. This is so cool. Take love and hate. The theory suggests they're not really opposites, but just the same flow going in different directions. With love, you see the other person as having a higher value, so that creates a positive difference and a flow towards them. With hate, you see yourself as having the higher value, creating a negative difference and a flow away from them. It's all about the direction of that current. The theory can even give us a new way to think about personality. It frames it as a kind of ratio between our basic survival needs and our more advanced, abstract needs, for things like meaning and purpose. If your basic needs are pulling stronger, you might be more pragmatic. If your higher needs are in the driver's seat, you might be more idealistic. And if they're about equal, you're balanced. And what's wild is that this model scales all the way up to describe complex social dynamics. For instance, the relationship between a governor and the people. There's a potential difference of power. The resistance could be institutional friction, and the flow that results is either cooperation or rebellion. Or between an artist and an audience. There's a difference in aesthetic energy, and that leads to a flow of inspiration. It's the same exact dynamic, just playing out on a much bigger stage. There's a quote from the source material that just ties all of this together perfectly. It says, meditation, empathy, art, and just governance all function as processes that reduce resistance and restore balance. Basically, all of these really positive forces in our lives are just different ways of making the flow of connection healthier and more efficient. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? I mean, why does any of it really matter? Well, it matters because this theory gives us a totally new lens to look at our own lives. It suggests that our experiences, our feelings, our relationships, they aren't just a series of random, chaotic events. Instead, they're all part of a dynamic system, one that's governed by these discoverable patterns of flow, difference, and resistance. And that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question. If our lives and our relationships really are this kind of flow, can we learn to consciously navigate it? Can we actually change the currents by adjusting these variables, by managing the differences, focusing our intention, and lowering the resistance? This theory suggests that the answer is yes. And that is a very, very powerful idea.